My fiancée told me she needed time alone to think, but the same night her Instagram story revealed she was at her ex's apartment. I stayed completely calm and said nothing. When she finally texted me, "I'm coming home," my response was something she never expected. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago whether I trusted my fiancée, I would have laughed and said something stupid like, "Of course I do. We're getting married." Turns out, trust doesn't always break with a loud crash. Sometimes, it breaks quietly, with a single Instagram story. But before I get into that, you need to understand a few things about me. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I'm not the kind of guy who likes drama. I work as a software engineer for a cybersecurity firm. I go to the gym 5 days a week, and my idea of a perfect Friday night is ordering pizza and watching a movie. I grew up in a small town in Montana with parents who stayed married for 35 years. My dad always told me something when I was growing up. "Son, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." At the time, I thought he was just giving generic father advice. Turns out, that sentence would end up changing my life. Because 2 weeks ago, my fiancée showed me exactly who she was. And I believed her. Her name is Claire Reynolds. Claire is the kind of woman who walks into a room and immediately becomes the center of attention. Long dark hair, green eyes, confident smile. We met 3 years ago at a friend's birthday party. She worked in marketing. I worked in tech. We were total opposites. But somehow, it worked. Or at least, I thought it did. For the first 2 years, our relationship felt perfect. We traveled together, met each other's families, moved into a small apartment downtown. Then last summer, I proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains. She cried. She said yes. And for a while, everything felt like it was falling into place. But there was one thing about Claire that always bothered me. Her ex-boyfriend. His name was Marcus. Claire dated him for almost 4 years before we met. According to her, the relationship ended because he was emotionally unavailable. At least, that's what she told me. But every now and then, Marcus's name would pop up in conversation. Sometimes it was innocent. Sometimes, it wasn't. Like the time she casually mentioned they still followed each other on social media. Or the time she told me he texted her on her birthday. Or the time I noticed she liked one of his Instagram photos. Each time I brought it up, Claire would roll her eyes and say the same thing. "Ethan, relax. He's just an ex." And because I trusted her, I let it go. But about 2 weeks ago, something strange started happening. Claire began acting distant. She'd come home from work and immediately disappear into the bedroom. She stopped asking about my day. She started sleeping facing the other direction. At first, I assumed she was stressed from work. Marketing deadlines, client pressure, normal stuff. Then one evening, while we were eating dinner, she suddenly put down her fork and sighed. "I think I need some space." I looked up. Space. She nodded slowly. "Just a couple of days. I feel overwhelmed. I need time to decompress." Now, here's the thing about me. I'm not a controlling person. If someone I love says they need space, I give it to them. So I nodded. "Okay, if that's what you need." She gave me a small smile. "Thank you for understanding." Then she packed a small overnight bag and said she was staying at her friend Megan's apartment for a few days. Before she left, she hugged me and whispered something that felt strange. "I love you." But there was something missing in the way she said it. Something hollow. I couldn't explain it at the time. But later that night, I would understand why. Because around 10:30 p.m., I was sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram when I saw something that made my stomach drop. Claire had posted a story. It was a selfie. She was smiling, holding a glass of wine. And in the background, I recognized the living room. I had seen it before. Not in person, but in photos. Because that living room belonged to Marcus, her ex-boyfriend. For a moment, I just stared at my phone. My brain trying to process what I was seeing. Maybe it was old. Maybe it wasn't his place. Maybe. Then I noticed the caption. "Finally able to breathe." And just like that, everything clicked. She hadn't gone to Megan's apartment. She had gone to Marcus's place. Her ex. The man she told me not to worry about. The man she said was just part of her past. I wish I could tell you I reacted dramatically. That I called her. That I screamed. That I confronted her. But I didn't. Instead, I did something much worse. I stayed quiet. Because in that moment, I remembered something my father once told me. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. So I believed her. And I started making a plan. 3 days passed. Claire didn't text much. Just a couple of short messages. "Hope you're okay. Work is crazy. Still decompressing." Each message felt more insulting than the last. Because I knew exactly where she was. Then on the 4th day, my phone buzzed while I was at work. It was Claire. Her message was simple. "I'm coming home tonight." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed a reply. A calm, simple message. The kind of message that would change everything. And when Claire read it, Her entire world collapsed, because my response was only 6 words long. But she never saw it coming. When Claire texted me, "I'm coming home tonight," I was sitting at my desk pretending to work. My coworkers were talking about a new project across the room, but I wasn't listening. I was staring at my phone, reading her message over and over again. 4 days. For 4 days she had been decompressing. 4 days she had been lying. And now she was casually announcing she was coming back home like nothing had happened. No explanation, no apology, just coming home. I leaned back in my chair and thought about what most people would do in this situation. They would call, they would scream, they would demand answers. But anger is loud, and loud reactions give people time to prepare lies. I didn't want lies. I wanted the truth, and the best way to get the truth was silence. So instead of confronting her immediately, I spent the next hour doing something she would never expect. I started preparing. First, I opened Instagram again. Claire's story had disappeared after 24 hours, but I had already taken screenshots. The selfie, the wine glass, Marcus's living room in the background. Then I did something else. I opened Marcus's profile. He didn't post much, but 3 nights ago he had uploaded a photo of his dog lying on the couch. And right behind the dog, you could see Claire's shoes on the floor. Same shoes she had packed when she left our apartment. That was all the confirmation I needed. But I still wasn't done. Because if Claire was coming home tonight, I wanted to make sure our conversation was very clear. No confusion, no manipulation. So after work, I stopped by a small office supply store. Bought a cardboard box. Then I went home. Our apartment felt strangely quiet without Claire there. I walked into the bedroom and looked around. Her clothes in the closet. Her makeup on the dresser. Her perfume on the nightstand. For a moment, I felt something painful in my chest. Not anger, not jealousy, just disappointment. 3 years. 3 years together, and this is how it ended. But the moment passed quickly. Because the truth is, once someone breaks your trust, something inside you changes. The love doesn't always disappear immediately. But the illusion does. And once the illusion is gone, you start seeing everything clearly. I grabbed the cardboard box and began packing. Her clothes, her shoes, her cosmetics, anything that belonged to Claire went into that box. Then another, and another. Within an hour, I had 3 boxes sitting near the apartment door. After that, I did something even simpler. I removed her spare key from the hook near the entrance. Then I placed it on top of the boxes. Finally, I sat down on the couch and waited. Around 8:40 p.m., my phone buzzed again. "Claire, leaving soon. See you in about 30 minutes, heart." I looked at the message. The heart emoji almost made me laugh. 4 days at her ex-boyfriend's place, and she was still sending hearts. That's when I sent the message. The one she never expected. 6 words. "Take your things. Don't come inside." I pressed send. Then I placed my phone on the table and waited. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then my phone exploded with notifications. Claire was typing. "Wait, what? What do you mean? Ethan, what's going on?" I didn't reply. A minute later, she called me. I let it ring. She called again, and again. I still didn't answer. Finally, another message appeared. "Are you serious right now?" That's when I responded. "Your Instagram story answered everything." There was a long pause. Almost 3 minutes. Then she sent a message that told me everything I needed to know. "Ethan, it's not what it looked like." Of course, the classic line, "It's never what it looks like." I picked up my phone and typed one final message. "Your boxes are outside." Then I locked my phone and put it face down on the table. 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside our apartment. Then the sound of the elevator door closing. And finally, a knock, not loud, just 2 quiet knocks. "Ethan." Claire's voice came through the door. I didn't answer. Another knock. "Ethan, please open the door." Silence. Then I heard her notice the boxes. "Wait, what?" The sound of cardboard moving. Her voice trembling slightly. "Ethan, why are my things out here?" I stayed sitting on the couch. Calm, still. Then her voice came again. More desperate this time. "Ethan, please talk to me." Finally, I stood up and walked to the door. But I didn't open it. Instead, I spoke through it. "Did you have fun at Marcus's place?" The silence on the other side of the door was immediate. Heavy. Then Claire spoke again, but this time her voice was shaking. "Who told you that?" I almost smiled, because guilty people always ask the same question. Not, "What are you talking about?" but, "Who told you?" Which means they already know the truth. I leaned against the door. "You did." Another long pause. Then she whispered, "You saw the story." "Yeah." More silence. Then suddenly, her tone changed. Defensive. "Okay, fine." I went there. But nothing happened. I closed my eyes for a moment. Not because I believed her, but because the predictability of the lie was almost exhausting. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Then why did you lie about where you were going?" She didn't answer, and that silence, That silence told me everything. Because people who are telling the truth usually answer immediately. But Claire stayed quiet, for almost 20 seconds. Then she said something I didn't expect. Can we please just talk about this inside? I looked at the door, at the woman I thought I was going to marry standing on the other side. And I realized something. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt free, so I answered her calmly. No, and the next thing I said was the moment Claire realized she had just lost everything. After I told Claire, no, the hallway outside the apartment went completely silent. For a few seconds, I thought maybe she had left. But then I heard her voice again. Softer this time, almost pleading. Ethan, please, just let me come inside so we can talk like adults. I leaned my forehead against the door and closed my eyes for a moment. 3 years. 3 years together, and somehow it had come down to a conversation through a closed door. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt calm, almost detached, like I was watching someone else's relationship fall apart instead of my own. Claire, I said quietly through the door, there's nothing to talk about. Immediately she replied, of course there is. You're jumping to conclusions. Jumping to conclusions. That phrase almost made me laugh. Because I had heard it before. Every time someone gets caught doing something wrong, the first strategy is denial. The second is blame, and the third is pretending the other person is overreacting. Claire was currently attempting step number 1. You saw one Instagram story, she continued. That doesn't mean anything happened. I shook my head slowly. You didn't just go to Marcus's place, I said. Silence. Then she asked carefully, what do you mean? I walked over to the couch, picked up my phone, and looked at the screenshot again. The selfie, the wine glass, Marcus's living room, but that wasn't even the part that bothered me the most. You were there for 4 days, I said. The moment I said that, I heard her breathing change. She didn't expect me to know that. How do you know that? She asked quickly. There it was again. Not. That's not true. Just. How do you know? Which meant it was true. I know, I said calmly. Another long pause filled the hallway. Then Claire tried a different tactic. Marcus and I just talked. About what? Our past. Our relationship. I needed closure. Closure. That word has destroyed more relationships than cheating itself. People say, closure, when they want to justify reopening doors that should have stayed closed. So you lied to me, I said. I didn't lie. You told me you were going to Megan's apartment. Claire didn't answer. Instead she sighed loudly. Ethan, I didn't tell you because I knew you would react like this. I actually laughed out loud when she said that. Because somehow, it had become my fault. Classic. So let me get this straight, I said. You went to your ex-boyfriend's apartment for 4 days, drank wine with him, lied to me about where you were, and now you're saying the problem is my reaction. Silence again. Then she muttered something under her breath. I just needed someone who understands me. That sentence hit differently, because I suddenly realized something. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Claire didn't feel guilty about what she did. She felt justified, and that realization made everything much easier. Then go stay with him, I said. Her response came instantly. What? You said he understands you. That's not what I meant. It sounds exactly like what you meant. I could hear her moving the boxes outside the door, probably sitting down in the hallway now. Ethan, she said quietly, you're being dramatic. Dramatic. Another classic. But before I could reply, something unexpected happened. I heard another voice in the hallway. A male voice. Claire. For a moment, my brain froze. Because I knew exactly who that voice belonged to. Marcus. Claire whispered something I couldn't hear. Then Marcus spoke again. Are you seriously sitting outside his apartment? I walked closer to the door slowly. Not opening it, just listening. Claire sounded embarrassed. Can you keep your voice down? Marcus laughed. A low, amused laugh. You said he wouldn't find out. The moment those words came through the door, something inside my chest went completely still. Not anger, not heartbreak, just confirmation. Claire immediately whispered sharply, Marcus, stop talking. But the damage was already done. I stepped closer to the door. So, I said loudly enough for both of them to hear, you brought him with you. Everything went silent. Then Marcus spoke again. Oh, so he's home. Claire sounded panicked now. Marcus, please just go. But Marcus didn't leave. Instead he said something that made the entire situation even worse. Man, if you're inside, you might as well come out. We should probably talk. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed. Because the audacity of the situation was unbelievable. My fiancée had spent 4 days with her ex. Then showed up to my apartment with him standing in the hallway. And now he wanted to talk. Unbelievable. But instead of opening the door, I said something simple. Claire. Her voice came back instantly. Yes. Did you bring him here to help carry the boxes? Marcus laughed again. Claire did not. Ethan, please stop. But I wasn't done yet. You should probably take the ring off too, I added calmly. That sentence changed the entire mood outside the door. Because for the first time since she arrived, Claire sounded scared. Ethan, you don't mean that. I leaned against the wall and looked at the engagement photo hanging in the hallway. The one where Claire was smiling at me like I was the only person in the world. Funny how things change. Yes, I said quietly. I do. And the next thing Claire said was the moment she finally realized that this situation was completely out of her control. After I told Claire to take the ring off, the hallway outside the apartment became completely quiet. For a moment, I wondered if she had finally realized the situation was over. Then I heard her voice again. But this time, it sounded different. Not defensive, not angry, panicked. Ethan, please don't do this. I leaned against the wall next to the door and closed my eyes for a second. Because hearing that tone in her voice felt strange. Just 10 minutes ago she was calling me dramatic. Now suddenly she was begging. Take the ring off, I repeated calmly. No, her response came immediately. No, I'm not doing that. Marcus spoke again in the hallway. Claire, maybe you should just give it back. Stay out of this, she snapped at him. That small moment told me a lot. Marcus wasn't here to defend her. He was just watching the chaos unfold. Probably amused by the whole situation. I spoke again through the door. You have two choices, Claire. She didn't answer. So I continued. You leave the ring and take your things. Or I open this door, take it myself, and then you leave. For the first time since this started, Marcus sounded uncomfortable. Man, that's kinda harsh. I laughed quietly. Harsh. Spending 4 days with someone else while engaged is harsh. This conversation was just consequences. Claire's voice became shaky again. You're really ending everything over this? That question almost made me open the door just so she could see my expression. Over this, I repeated. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. You're throwing away 3 years because I talked to my ex. That was the moment I realized something important. Claire genuinely believed this situation could still be fixed. She thought this was just a temporary fight. Something we would argue about and eventually move past. Which meant she still didn't understand what she had done. So I decided to make it clear. Claire, I said calmly, you didn't just talk to him. Silence. Then she whispered, you don't know that. I smiled slightly, because this was exactly where the conversation needed to go. You're right, I said. I don't. Another pause. Then she quickly said, see, so you're accusing me without proof. That's when Marcus made the biggest mistake of the night. He laughed, and said something he probably shouldn't have. Claire, come on, he's not stupid. The second those words left his mouth, the hallway went silent again. Then Claire whispered sharply, Marcus, shut up. But it was too late. Because now I knew exactly what kind of situation this was. Marcus wasn't worried about getting caught. Which meant he didn't think there were consequences. That confidence only comes from one place. When someone believes the relationship they're interfering with is already weak. So I said something simple. You should probably go, Marcus. He chuckled. Why? You gonna come out here and fight me? I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. No. Then I said the sentence that changed the entire tone of the night. But the building cameras already recorded you. Everything outside the door froze. Claire spoke first. What? Marcus stopped laughing. I continued calmly. You walked into the building with Claire about 5 minutes ago. No one said anything, so I kept going. This building has security cameras in the lobby and every hallway. Marcus spoke again, but this time his voice wasn't confident anymore. So, I said calmly, tomorrow morning I'm sending the footage to someone. Claire sounded confused. Who? I walked back to the couch and sat down again. The landlord. Silence. Then Marcus scoffed. Why would he care? Because the lease only has 2 tenants listed. Claire, and me. Marcus suddenly understood. Wait, I continued. And the lease has a clause about unauthorized overnight guests staying longer than 2 nights. Claire's voice became frantic. Ethan, stop. But I wasn't finished. 4 nights, I said. 4 nights is considered a violation. Marcus swore quietly. Claire's voice shook. You wouldn't actually do that. I looked at my phone. At the screenshots. At the messages. And then I said the most honest thing I had said all night. You already did. Another long silence followed. Then Marcus muttered something under his breath. Claire, you said he was a quiet guy. I laughed again. I am. Then I added one last thing. But quiet doesn't mean stupid. Claire sounded desperate now. Ethan, please, let's just talk about this tomorrow. No, please, no. Then she asked the question she had been avoiding all night. So what happens now? I stood up and walked back to the door. You leave. Her voice cracked. And us. I took a deep breath before answering. There is no us anymore. And the next thing that happened in the hallway was something Claire definitely didn't expect. After I said, there is no us anymore, the hallway outside the apartment became completely silent. For a few seconds, I didn't hear anything. No voices, no movement, just quiet. Then suddenly, Claire started crying. Not the quiet controlled crying people use during arguments. This was different. This was the kind of crying that comes when someone realizes they've actually lost something. Ethan, please, she said through the door, her voice shaking. I made a mistake. I stayed silent, because the truth is, apologies after getting caught don't mean much. They mean even less when they come 4 days too late. I swear nothing happened, she continued. We just talked. Marcus sighed loudly in the hallway. Claire, you should probably stop saying that. Her crying stopped instantly. What? Marcus sounded irritated now. I mean, come on. He already knows. Claire whispered sharply, Marcus, shut up. But Marcus wasn't interested in protecting her anymore. And honestly, I think he was getting tired of the drama. Look, Marcus said, this whole situation is ridiculous. Claire sounded nervous now. What are you doing? I'm telling the truth. Then Marcus said something that made everything outside the door explode. She didn't just come over to talk. The silence that followed felt heavy. Claire whispered slowly, Marcus. But Marcus kept going. She came over because she wanted to see if we still had something. I leaned against the door again, listening carefully. Claire's voice was shaking now. Why would you say that? Marcus laughed bitterly. Because it's true. Another pause. Then he added, you literally said you weren't sure if you wanted to marry him. That sentence hit like a bomb in the hallway. Even though I already suspected something like that, hearing it confirmed felt different. Claire sounded horrified. Marcus, stop. But Marcus wasn't done. You told me you felt like you settled. That was the moment the crying started again. But this time it wasn't quiet. Claire was completely breaking down. Marcus, please stop talking. Marcus sighed. Claire, I'm not the one who proposed to him while still thinking about someone else. For a moment, no one spoke. I stood inside the apartment, staring at the floor. Not angry, not shocked, just done. Claire finally spoke again, her voice desperate. Ethan, that's not what I meant. I didn't answer. Ethan, please say something. Still nothing. Then she knocked on the door again. Harder this time. Ethan, I walked closer to the door slowly. But I still didn't open it. Is it true? I asked calmly. Claire didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. But eventually she whispered, I was confused. Marcus laughed again. Confused for 4 days. Claire snapped at him. Why are you even here? Marcus replied instantly. You asked me to drive you. Another piece of truth. Another crack in her story. Claire sounded completely defeated now. Marcus, just leave. Gladly. I heard footsteps moving down the hallway. Then the elevator door opened and closed. Marcus was gone. Now it was just Claire and me again. Through a closed door. After a long silence, she spoke quietly. Ethan, please open the door. I didn't move. I just want to talk face to face. Still nothing. Then she said something that made me finally respond. You owe me that much. I shook my head slowly. No, Claire. Her voice cracked again. After 3 years together, you won't even look at me. I finally answered honestly. If I open that door, you'll try to convince me to ignore everything that just happened. That's not true. It is. She didn't respond, because she knew I was right. Then I said something that ended the conversation completely. The ring. Another pause. Then I heard the small metallic sound of something hitting the floor. She had taken it off. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Claire whispered something that almost sounded like regret. I didn't think you'd actually leave me. That sentence explained everything. She never thought there would be consequences. She thought she could test the past and still keep the future. But life doesn't work like that. I hope Marcus was worth it, I said quietly. And the final thing Claire said before leaving was something she would probably regret for the rest of her life. After the small metallic sound of the ring hitting the floor, the hallway outside my apartment became quiet again. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the moment right before a storm finally passes. For a few seconds, I just stood there next to the door, staring at the floor. 3 years. 3 years of memories had just ended on the other side of that door. And strangely, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt relieved. Then Claire spoke again, but this time her voice sounded completely different. Not desperate, not emotional, just tired. I guess this is really it. I didn't answer, because there wasn't anything left to say. I heard her moving the boxes slowly in the hallway. The sound of cardboard scraping across the floor. Then she said something quietly. Something that almost sounded like regret. You know, Marcus didn't even want me back. That sentence caught my attention. I stayed silent, but I listened. Claire let out a small, bitter laugh. He said he was just curious if I would actually show up. For the first time that night, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then she continued. And when I did, he said it told him everything he needed to know. Another pause filled the hallway. Then she whispered, I ruined my life for nothing. Those words hung in the air for a long moment. Finally, I spoke again. Not for nothing. Claire sniffed quietly. What do you mean? You learned something. Silence. Then she asked softly, What? I took a deep breath before answering. That actions have consequences. Another long pause followed. Then Claire said something that surprised me. You know what the worst part is? I didn't respond, but she continued anyway. You trusted me. Her voice cracked slightly, and I broke it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I heard her pick up the ring from the floor. She didn't try to give it back through the door. Instead, she placed it on top of one of the boxes. Then she knocked gently on the door one last time. Goodbye, Ethan. Her footsteps slowly moved down the hallway. The elevator doors opened, closed, and just like that, she was gone. I stood there for a long moment before finally unlocking the door. When I opened it, the hallway was empty. 3 boxes sat near the wall, and on top of the first one was the engagement ring. I picked it up and looked at it for a few seconds. Then I closed the door again. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because the truth was finally clear. And sometimes clarity is more peaceful than comfort. 3 months later, life has a strange way of moving forward. At first, the apartment felt empty without Claire. But eventually, it started feeling like mine again. I redecorated, moved some furniture around, started focusing more on work. And most importantly, I stopped thinking about the past. Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I got a message from an unknown number. It was Claire. Her message was short. I just wanted to say I'm sorry again. I know that doesn't fix anything. But you deserved better than what I did. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed a reply. Take care of yourself. That was it. No anger. No bitterness. Just closure. Because the truth is, once someone breaks your trust like that, the relationship doesn't end with a fight. It ends with indifference. And that's when you know you've truly moved on.